It was a rainy evening in Los Angeles when Ana de Armas pulled into the small, quiet grocery store parking lot. She had just finished a long and emotional audition, one that felt more like a confession than a performance. Her heart was heavy. Everything in her life seemed stuck. Her roles weren't landing. Her calls weren't being returned. And worst of all, she felt invisible in a city that once cheered her name. As she got out of her old silver car, the clouds above grumbled. She looked up, brushing a wet strand of hair from her cheek and sighed. Her car had been her companion through years of hustle, but lately it had been breaking down too often, just like her spirit. After grabbing a few essentials from the store, she returned to find her car in worse shape than she left it. The passenger window was cracked, maybe from the wind, maybe from something else. She froze, unsure what to do. It was the last thing she needed. Then she saw it, a note tucked neatly under the worn windshield wiper, protected in a Ziploc bag, as if someone had thought carefully before placing it there. Shh. She reached for it, her fingers trembling slightly. The handwriting was familiar. It was gentle, strong, and oddly calming. I saw your window. I couldn't drive past it. I don't know why, but something told me to stop. I hope this small act helps. We've all been broken in some way. Maybe today, it's the car. Tomorrow, it won't be. Stay strong. If you need help, call this number K. There was a phone number below it. No name, just an initial. Ana stared at the note for a long time, her breath caught in her chest. She knew that handwriting. It belonged to someone she hadn't spoken to in years, Keanu Reeves. They had met on a set long ago. Shared a few scenes, a few laughs, even a few silences that meant more than words. But time and careers had taken them in different directions. They hadn't stayed in touch. And now, out of nowhere, this Ana sat in her car for a long while, holding the note, her eyes filled with tears, not because the car was damaged, but because someone still saw her, someone remembered. She didn't call the number that night. She couldn't. Her voice would have cracked, and she wasn't ready to speak. Instead, she reread the note over and over. Every word was a thread stitching together something inside her that had been torn apart for months. 3 days passed before. She worked up the courage. She dialed the number slowly. It rang twice then, his voice. Hello? Ana paused. It's Ana, she said, her voice soft. I got your note. There was a silence. Not awkward, but thick with memory. I'm glad you called, Keanu replied gently. She smiled for the first time in days. Something inside her said this was the beginning of something she didn't expect, maybe not love. Not yet, but healing. Thank you, she whispered. Not just for the note. For ... noticing. Keanu let out a breath on the other end. We notice the ones we care about, even when they think they've disappeared. Ana leaned her head back against the seat. For the first time in a long while, the rain didn't feel cold, felt like a song she once loved, but had forgotten. She didn't know where this would lead. She knew one thing for sure. Someone still cared, and that made all the difference. Ana didn't sleep much that night. After her call with Keanu, her mind wouldn't quiet down. Every memory of their short time together came rushing back like a tide that had been waiting to return. The way he used to really listen, the calm in his voice, the way he never tried to impress anyone. She remembered how safe she felt around him, even during chaotic filming days. But most of all, she remembered why they had stopped talking. It wasn't dramatic. No fight, no harsh words. Just time, silence, and two careers moving in opposite directions. But now, that one small note had opened a door that had been closed for too long. The next morning, Ana stood in front of her mirror, staring at her own tired reflection. She touched the corner of her eyes where the tears had dried the night before, and then whispered, just call him again, just talk. She didn't expect anything, not romance, not a miracle, just connection, something real. She picked up her phone and typed a message instead of calling. Can I buy you coffee? I owe you more than a thank you. She sent it. Seconds passed, then minutes, and her phone buzzed. You don't owe me anything. But yes, coffee sounds good. They agreed to meet at a quiet little cafe near the edge of Silver Lake, placed with wooden chairs, soft lighting, and a wall filled with books. It was the kind of place where no one pretended to be someone else. Anna arrived first. She was nervous. Her hands played with the rim of her coffee cup as she waited. Then he walked in. Keanu looked the same. Maybe older, but in the best way. Grounded, peaceful, his black jacket soaked slightly from the light drizzle outside. When he saw her, he smiled gently and waved. She stood up. "Hey," she said, trying to hide the nerves in her voice. "Hey," he replied, with that same warmth she remembered. They sat. There was a pause, then a laugh. Both at the same time. "This is strange," she said. "It is," he agreed, "but not bad." They talked for hours. At first it was small things, films, auditions, memories of past sets. But slowly the conversation deepened. Donna found herself telling him things she hadn't told anyone in months, about how she felt lost lately, how the roles she was offered didn't feel like her anymore, how the silence from her team hurt more than she expected, how the fame, once exciting, now felt like a weight. Keanu didn't interrupt. He just listened. "Sometimes," he said finally, "life goes quiet because it wants us to listen." Looked at him, puzzled. "To what?" "To ourselves," he said softly. "The version of us we forgot in all the noise." His words hit her in the chest. Deep. They didn't talk much after that. They didn't need to. When they stepped outside, the rain had stopped. The sky was still gray, but the air felt clearer. "Do you want a ride?" Keanu asked, motioning to his old black motorcycle parked nearby. Anna smiled. "Like old times?" He grinned. "Ain't like old times." She climbed on the back, her arms wrapped around him, not in fear, but in comfort. The engine roared to life, and they sped down the quiet streets, wind brushing against their faces, hearts a little lighter than before. Anna closed her eyes for a moment, holding on to the feeling. For the first time in what felt like years, she wasn't chasing anything. She was just ... here, and that was enough. The next morning, Anna sat by her bedroom window, watching the clouds shift slowly across the pale sky. Her fingers held the same note Keanu had left on her broken car window. Now a little wrinkled from being folded and read too many times. Something in her heart had shifted since their coffee together. Not everything was better. Her problems hadn't magically disappeared, but the fog in her mind had begun to lift. She could finally breathe without that heavy weight pressing down on her chest. A knock at the door pulled her back to the moment. When she opened it, small envelope had been left on the floor. No name. Just one word written in the same calm handwriting. Hope. Inside was a single folded piece of paper. A poem. Handwritten, not famous. Not from a book. It felt personal, I read. "Sometimes the road ends where you begin. Sometimes a storm brings you closer to home. Don't be afraid of broken windows. They show us where the light gets in." No signature. No number this time. But she didn't need one. She knew it was from Keanu. Anna held the poem against her chest and smiled. It wasn't just kindness. It was understanding. It was rare. Later that afternoon, she decided to do something she had been putting off for weeks. Drove out to an old storage unit on the edge of the city. It held pieces of her past scripts she once loved, photos from old sets, notebooks filled with ideas she never had time to finish. She unlocked the unit and stepped inside. The air was dusty and quiet. She sat on the cold floor and started going through boxes. Hours passed. In one worn leather notebook, she found a story she had written years ago. It was about a girl who left everything behind to find herself in a new city. It was raw, simple, full of dreams. Anna read it cover to cover. When she reached the last page, she realized it wasn't just a story. It was her story. Not the Hollywood version. Not the polished one people expected. Just her. She took a deep breath and knew what she had to do. That evening, she called her agent. "I want to make something real," she said. something personal, something honest. The voice on the other end sounded hesitant. Anna, studios are looking for something different right now. Action, fantasy, not quiet stories. Then I'll do it on my own, she said firmly. Even if it's just for 5 people who need it. There was silence. I respect that, her agent finally replied. Let me know how I can support. When she hung up, she sent a message to Keanu. You reminded me of who I was. Thank you. I want to write something. Maybe direct it too. It's a small story, but it matters to me. A few moments later, he replied, Then it matters to me too. If you want help, I'm in. Anna smiled so hard she had to wipe her eyes. Keanu didn't ask questions. He didn't offer opinions, just quiet support. And in a world that shouted so much that silence meant everything. The next morning, they met again, this time not for coffee, but to talk about the story. They sat in a quiet park under a tree, notebooks open, the wind playing gently with the pages. Anna read aloud some scenes. Keanu listened with the same focus he always had. This is beautiful, he said, and brave. Admitted, that means you're doing it right, he replied. Anna laughed through her tears. Maybe this story wouldn't win awards. Maybe it wouldn't trend. But it would be honest, and that was more than enough. The days that followed moved quietly, but deeply. Anna and Keanu met almost every morning, sometimes at the small cafe in Silver Lake, sometimes at her apartment, sometimes on long walks through quiet neighborhoods. Each meeting brought new pages, new scenes, and new ideas. They didn't rush. They just let the story unfold. It wasn't just a script. It was healing. The story was about a girl who returned to her hometown after years away, only to discover her younger self had left behind. More than she realized, the girl in the story wasn't perfect. She was unsure, sometimes broken, but full of love. Anna poured her soul into the character. It was her. It was her truth. Keanu, without ever pushing, became her anchor. He helped shape dialogue, structure, scenes, and more than anything, he reminded her to keep going when doubt crept in. Stories like this matter, said one night while they sat on her balcony. The world needs quiet truths just as much as it needs loud spectacles. Anna looked over at him, her eyes soft. Why are you helping me so much? He paused for a second before answering. Because once someone helped me when I had nothing, and I never forgot. His words stayed with her. He didn't talk much about his past, but when he did, it was always filled with depth and grace. As weeks passed, the script neared completion. It had turned into something raw and beautiful. And one evening, just before sunset, Anna held the finished script in her hands. She couldn't. Stop smiling. We did it, she whispered. You did it, Keanu said, placing a hand on her shoulder. I just walked beside you, Anna. Turned to him. That made all the difference. That life, as always, had its way of testing the soul. The next morning, Anna received a call. A major studio had gotten wind of her small project. Someone from her old team had leaked the idea. Now they wanted to buy it, fund it, turn it into something big. You'll be the lead, the executive said on the phone. We'll bring in a top director, rework the script a bit to make it more commercial. It'll be huge. Anna stood in silence. The offer was tempting. Big names, big budget, a comeback. But deep inside, she knew it came with a cost. After the call, she sat in the same park where she and Keanu first read scenes together. She called him. They want to buy the script, she said quietly. Keanu didn't speak at first. But they want to change it, she added. They want someone else to direct, and they want to make it louder. Another pause. What do you want? He asked finally. Anna looked up at the tree above her, its leaves swaying gently in the wind. I want it to stay real, she said. I want it to stay mine. Keanu's voice was calm. Then protect it. Because once you hand it over, it's no longer yours. Anna hung up and stared at the script beside her. Her name was on every page, but more than that, her truth was. On every page. Hours later, she called the studio back. Thank you, she said, her voice steady. But no, the executive pushed back, tried to convince her, but she stood her ground. This one, I need to do myself." She hung up before they could say more. She felt scared, but also strong. That night, Keanu showed up at her door with 2 cups of hot tea and a quiet smile. "You did the brave thing," he said. Anna took the tea and looked at him, her eyes shining. "I'm not sure where this leads," she admitted. "Good," he replied. "The best roads never show you the end." The next few weeks were a storm of quiet strength. Anna had turned down the biggest offer of her career. Though her heart beat with fearsome nights, she also felt something new: freedom. For the first time in years, she wasn't chasing a spotlight. She was building something that felt like home. She and Keanu started planning how to bring the story to life on their own. They didn't have a big studio or famous producers, but they had a script that mattered. They had honesty. Most of all, they had each other's trust. Keanu made a few quiet calls to people he knew. Not the loud kind of calls with favors and pressure. It's just small, kind conversations. Soon, a tiny crew came together, friends of friends who still believed in the heart of storytelling. Anna's apartment became their meeting place. The walls, filled with notes, drawings, scene lists, and late-night laughter. She had never been this tired, but she had never felt this alive. One day, after a long rehearsal, Anna sat alone in her living room, holding the script close to her chest. Everything. It was almost ready. Filming would begin in just a week, and then came the call. Her mother had fallen sick in Cuba, the kind of sick that makes time feel short. Anna's hands trembled as she ended the call. Her heart cracked open with worry. She packed a small bag that night, wrote a message to Keanu. "I need to go. I don't know how long, I'm sorry," he replied within minutes. "Go. Take care of her. The story can wait. The heart can't." She left early the next morning, the sky still dark, the city still asleep. When she arrived in Cuba, everything felt slow. The streets, the air, the rhythm of her old neighborhood was the opposite of Hollywood. And yet something inside her softened. Her mother lay in a small hospital room with thin curtains and quiet monitors. She smiled when she saw Anna, weak but warm. "You look tired," her mother whispered. Anna sat beside her, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I've been trying to do something that matters." Her mother took her hand gently. "You always mattered," she said. "You forgot." "I didn't." Those words broke something inside Anna. And then they rebuilt her. She stayed for days. Then a week, helping, holding, loving. Back in Los Angeles, Keanu checked in every evening. Never asked about the film, just about her heart. "How's your soul today? Do you need anything? Just reminding you, you're not alone." Anna replied with short but honest messages. She didn't have the energy for long talks, but his words reached her every time. Then, one night, her mother's breathing slowed. Anna held her hand through the night, whispering stories, childhood memories, and lines from the script that had grown out of love and loss. At sunrise, her mother took her last breath, peaceful. Anna didn't cry at first. She just sat still, feeling both broken and whole. She returned to Los Angeles 10 days later, thinner, quieter, but stronger. When Keanu opened the door and saw her, didn't say a word, just pulled her into a long, silent hug. They stood there for a long time. When they finally let go, Anna said softly, "I'm ready now." Keanu nodded, then, "Let's tell our story." Anna smiled. "No," she said. "Let's tell ours." The first day of filming began before sunrise. The sky was still dark, and the air was cold enough to bite. But inside the small studio they had rented, the lights flickered on one by one. Casting a warm glow over the empty set, Anna stood quietly, near the edge, holding the final draft of the script in her hand. It had been marked, rewritten, folded, and even stained with tears. But now it was whole. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and remembered the first moment, the broken car window, the quiet note, the poem about light getting in. Keanu walked moments later, wearing a simple black hoodie and holding 2 cups of tea. He handed her one without saying a word. They both looked around the room. "We did it," she whispered. "No," he said softly. "You did?" Anna nodded slowly. "I wouldn't have without you." They didn't need to say more. The journey was written in every glance. The filming began. It was not easy. They had a small crew, short hours, no big trailers, no fancy costumes, but they had heart. Each scene felt honest, raw. Each take filled with more emotion than she had ever allowed herself to show. For Keanu played a quiet role in the film. Not the lead. Not the hero. Just a man who appears when the main character needs a reminder that kindness still exists. He had asked for the part himself. "I don't want to take up space," he had said. "Just hold it open for you." Anna. Directed with grace. Some days she laughed until her eyes watered. Other days she cried behind the monitor, letting go of pain she didn't even know she still carried. One night, after filming a deeply emotional scene, the crew surprised her. They had lit candles and brought a small cake. Someone had written a note on top. "You didn't just make a film, you made us all feel again." Anna couldn't speak. She just covered her mouth, smiled, and cried. Weeks later, the film was complete. They named it Open Window. Anna didn't send it to big studios. Instead, she submitted it to a few small festivals, quiet ones. The kind where stories are heard, it's not sold. The first screening happened in a small theater with creaky chairs and soft carpets. As the lights dimmed and the opening scene played, Anna's heart pounded. But by the end, as the final line was spoken and the screen faded to black, the room stayed silent. Then came the applause. Slow but rising. Deep. Real. People didn't just clap, they stood. Many cried. Afterward, strangers came up to her. "This story, it felt like mine. I haven't seen something this honest in years. Thank you for reminding us what." Anna stood quietly through it all, her heart overwhelmed, and when the crowd thinned, she found herself outside in the cool night air, standing beside Keanu once again. "You know," said gently, "this all started with a broken window." She laughed softly, and a handwritten note. He looked at her, his eyes kind. "Sometimes," he said, "things break so the right people can find each other." Ah. Anna reached into her bag and pulled out the original note he had left her. It was folded carefully, still in its little Ziploc bag. She handed it back to him. "No," he said, shaking his head. "Keep it. It was always meant for you." Anna held it close to her chest. "Then let's leave it somewhere else," she said after a moment. "For someone who might need it." Keanu smiled. They walked to a nearby bench. Quiet, peaceful. They left the note there, just like before. Anna watched it rest under the wooden slats, then turned to him. "You think someone will find it?" "Someone always does," he said. They walked away slowly, side by side, not knowing where the road would go next. But this time, they weren't afraid. They had walked through silence, loss, fear, and truth, together. And from a single act of kindness, a story had been born, a story that healed, a story that mattered, a story that began with a cracked window and ended with an open heart.